Hi, I'm Assemblywoman Wirths, and I'll be reacting to Governor Murphy's...
Slower.
Too fast?
Hi, I'm Assemblywoman Nancy Munoz, here with Assemblyman Wirths.
Hi, I'm Assemblyman Wirths, and today we'll be reacting to Governor Murphy's 2021 budget address.
There are other places where our investments will remain intact to the greatest possible extent because of the partnership between our administration and the legislature, and I especially want to shout out the leaderships, the Senate President and the Speaker, to see to it that we can borrow on an emergency basis, and I might add at historically low interest rates, the funds we need to keep these investments secure.
So the answer is to borrow. We're going to borrow money to put it into our rainy day fund. We're going to borrow money to do our things. That's not helping the people of New Jersey.
This is insulting to the people of New Jersey to borrow $4 billion and pay interest, put $2 billion in surplus, and say that New Jersey has a surplus is an insult to the intelligence of the folks in New Jersey.
And they always talk about, record low interest rates. Well, record low interest rates are going to go up. These bonds are out over 35 years in some cases. And you don't think in 35 years from now, when our children and grandchildren are paying back the bonds, that we're going to have not going to have a higher interest rate, then you don't know what you're talking about.
The credit ratings will be destroying New Jersey over this. To go out and take a credit card cash advance and put it in your savings account and then go home and tell your wife that you have money in savings is so outrageous.
And patting yourself on the back for doing it. And then making a big announcement. We have $2 billion in our rainy day fund. Well, it's $2 billion that you've borrowed.
This whole budget could have been done without any tax increases and without any borrowing if we really wanted to and put our heads together and worked as a team. This is completely unnecessary.
Years of poor fiscal decision-making have left too many New Jerseyans vulnerable to the global recession that this pandemic has created.
Well, years of poor decision-making, he's making poor decisions. He keeps talking about the past. We can't talk about the past anymore. It's time to move forward. And he's making poor decisions. Again, imposing all these taxes is just going to force people out of work, out of their businesses, and out of the state. I think he's in la-la land.
Poor decisions. The poorest decision I've ever seen in my involvement in government or in business is going out and borrowing money and then putting it in a savings account. That is the poorest decision. And on top of that, 9 new taxes and God knows how many fees, because we haven't seen the actual entire budget yet, but that's really what's outrageous.
And also, there's taxes on healthcare costs. Here we are in a pandemic, which is actually a health crisis. And what we're doing is increasing taxes on HMOs, increasing taxes on health insurance plans, and increasing taxes on opioids, the drugs that are legal drugs used for legitimate pain patients. He's approaching it as though it's a sin tax, and it's not a sin to get cancer. It's not a sin to get MS. How dare he do that? That's really wrong.
Inspired by the trailblazing work of Senator Cory Booker at the federal level, I propose today that New Jersey provide a baby bond, a $1,000 deposit into an account for every child born in the year 2021 to a family making up to $131,000 per year.
It's offensive. We're $220 billion in debt, coming off of one of the worst pandemics, and you're going to start a new program like this, putting $1,000 aside, and you're going out and borrowing $4 billion. It just doesn't make any sense or any logic. And again, who does it hit? It hits the middle-class people who have been providing for their kids, putting away for their kids, saving for the kids. This program is outrageous, and it just shows, what a socialist he is.
Well, it also makes no sense. Allow people to invest their own $1,000. Give them a tax break. Allow them to use their $1,000 to invest how they want.
Government just shouldn't be in this business. This is left up to the private sector and have faith in the New Jersey residents and the families. And government has no business taking money from one group and putting it in another group's pocket. It's so absurd. He's obviously looking to run for higher office.
This budget envisions a closing surplus of more than $2.2 billion, a much-needed cushion against revenue shocks from a second wave. And this surplus, trust me, living this every minute is not a luxury. It is a product of lessons learned. Think ahead, be prepared.
Think ahead, be prepared. He's borrowing the money. I mean, it's easy. You need something, you just go, I'll borrow the money, I'll put it in the savings account. It doesn't even make any sense. He's supposed to be a finance guy. I thought he came from the financial world. How can he make this kind of decision?
I agree. Lessons learned. If you learned any lesson, this is how New Jersey got in this position we're in, is borrowing, borrowing, borrowing. If you learned any lessons, he wouldn't have done this move to go out and borrow $2 billion from one bank, put it in another bank, and say you got a $2 billion surplus. People aren't going to fall for it or believe it because it's just not true.
You know, you underestimate the intelligence of the residents of New Jersey when you give them that line, because people understand. They know you're borrowing the money. Do not underestimate the intelligence of New Jersey residents and your New Jersey taxpayers.
And please don't call it a surplus. That's just outrageous.